Good evening, everyone. My name is Ernestine Shipman. I'm one of the board members of the League of Women Voters of Irving. On behalf of the League's board and all its members, we welcome you to the Candidates Forum for the Irving City Council. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages active and informative participation in government. Through education and advocacy, the voter can influence policy to make a positive impact on society. The League helps the voter to understand the process and to learn how powerful it is. Essentially, what we're saying is that at the League, we do not advocate for any particular candidate or particular party. Before we begin, I would like to thank the City of Irving for hosting this event and for the ICTN network for recording it. There will be a recording of it later on through several channels, including YouTube. Our moderator tonight is David Pfaff, former board and chair of the Chamber of Commerce, Irving Chamber of Commerce, and son of longtime League member Ann Pfaff. And I'm going to turn the forum over to David, and David is over here on our left. Thank you, David.
Good evening and welcome to the 2023 League of Women Voters City Council Candidate Forum. The Irving City Council candidates are Paul Bertanzetti, which he told me rhymes with spaghetti, Abdul Kabir, and Mark Zeski. Our District 5 candidates are Mark Cronowit, Jesse Kohler, Anthony Stanford, Heather Stroop, and Matthew Varble. So welcome, candidates, and thank you for being here. Please unmute yourself before speaking and mute yourself when you finish. So there's a little button up here, and you can see my microphone is red, so if it's red, it's unmuted. Regarding the format, each candidate will have 1 minute opening and closing statements and 1 minute to answer questions. Guests can submit a write-in question to any League member, and if time, we can include them. So we'll begin with a 1 minute statement from each candidate. Tonight we'll start with place 3 with Mr. Bertanzetti. One more reminder, we have a timekeeper here who will give you a 30-second warning and a 10-second warning as well.
Okay. I'm Paul Bertanzetti, running in District 3. I live at 3838 Twin Falls. It's up kind of not quite in the middle of the district, but fairly close. I've seen several things that need to be addressed in our district. The sidewalks and the roads are very, very bad, especially the sidewalks. For older people to walk on them, you're taking your life in your hands in many instances. Yellowstone, Victoria. And drainage is a problem on some, like Twin Falls. And anyway, several of the streets where water collects in about 20 by 20 foot areas, and it's almost like mini lakes. So that plus the fact that we're having a problem with homelessness here in the city that needs to be addressed. My brother is in fact kind of a victim of that. And if you let these people in, you're going to have a real problem with them. And so we have to address this, not with a homeless shelter, but in dealing with them in particular. I think that we need more strict regulations on the streets with racing of cars, running stop signs, and so forth. So those are various, and I think we need to address the twice a week trash pickup and the fact that we don't need more debt. I'm Paul Bertanzetti. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Kabir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Abdul Khabir, and I'm the resident of Irving for last 18 years. I live at 2704 Alhambra Drive in Irving, and I'm a graduate from a business school and wanted to contribute to our community and to the city. So I only have 5 points which I'm trying to and will focus if get elected. Number 1 is economic growth. Number 2 is public safety and security. Number 3 is transparency and accountability. And diversity and inclusion is number 4. And number 5 is community involvement. So these are my focus points which I am going to work on so that we could make our communities better, a place to live. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Zeski.
Hello, my name is Mark Zeski. I've lived in Irving for 50 of my years. I'm a graduate of the University of Dallas. I am here to serve you. I am a servant. I didn't run because somebody asked me to. I didn't run so I didn't sit around and say, hey guys, watch this. I'm not using you. I'm not trying to push your buttons to get elected. I'm here to serve you. And I've served here for decades, and I've served in every way possible, from spending the night at Family Promise with homeless people to teaching kids that all of a sudden have to learn the Quran when they get a certain age. I've tutored kids through English. All 3 of the kids that I did are now college graduates. I've been on I've just served. I was on the Ben Washington Scholarship Committee. I did Sunday school forever. And I could go on different ways I've served you. And I've showed up and worked hard for you for decades. And I'm here to do it some more. Thank you.
Thank you. And in place 5, Mr. Cronowet.
Good evening. My name is Mark Cronowitz, and I'm running for City Council, District 5. I want to begin by thanking the League of Women Voters for providing this forum tonight, and to all of you for joining us here this evening. I've always been drawn to public service as a way of giving back to the community in which I live. For the last 14 years, I've served the residents of Irving. I've coached initially as a YMCA baseball and a basketball coach. I've served on numerous boards, including I was the chair of the YMCA board. I chaired TIF District Number 1. I chaired the Planning and Zoning Commission and chaired the Bond Commission back in 2019. I've also served on the Irving Convention and Visitors Bureau and the La Buena Vida Foundation. My motivation in serving on these boards has always been to serve our community. My experience serving the city, the knowledge I've gained from the years of conversations I've had with residents and business owners, and the relationships I've established with city staff and city leaders have prepared me for service on the City Council. I want to continue to make Irving the most desirable city in North Texas in which to live, work, and raise a family. Thank you.
Mr. Kohler.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jesse Kohler. I am obviously a longtime Irving resident. I'm married and a proud new father of a brand new baby boy. I'm a decorated combat veteran. I'm also educated. I have a BBA in business management and a BS in accounting. I'm also a small business owner. I've had extensive experience and representation from being elected on my condo board of directors and treasurer, and also representing the United States military and one of the provincial coordination centers there in Afghanistan. I don't have to tell you what kind of issues you would have representing the interests of the United States military in a very, very diverse, culturally opposite from the United States, but it was an extremely hostile environment. But I was able to align the wants and needs of my leaders with that of village elders that greatly saved the lives of our American fathers, sons, and brothers. And like Councilman Zeski said, this is about representation. So I want to take this opportunity to say, if I can do this in an extreme hostile environment, imagine what I can do for you here in City Hall. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stanford.
Hello, my name's Anthony Stanford. Thank you for having me here tonight, and all of us here tonight. My main issue was I was trying to get a permit, and I was having issues with dealing with the city, so I felt I needed to do something to address it. That's why I'm running, and there's several other things, such as the roads need repairing that need to get taken care of. Thank you.
Ms. Stroop.
Hello, I'm Heather Stroop. Thank you for having us all here today. I see some familiar faces in the crowd that are here every year that we have these. I'm a 29-year resident of Irving. I have 2 kids, and one is sitting somewhere, and he goes to Travis Middle School. Hi there, Gray. I love Irving because it's a big city with a small-town feel. I came here initially because a large commercial industrial supply corporation lured me here, and I loved it. My work life started as a consultant, and then I became a business owner. I'm in the salon business and the restaurant business, and I broker the sales of some restaurants as well, so I'm a champion of small business. I've, too, been on the City of Irving's Bond Task Force. I've served on several Irving ISD committees, and I'm a director on the Irving Las Colinas Chamber. And I also am an active member of the Texas Economic Development Council. Thank you for having us here.
Mr. Verbal.
Everything my campaign represents is to challenge the status quo and to improve the city of Irving. I believe in thinking differently and increasing accountability and transparency by pursuing initiatives such as returning to twice-a-week trash pickup. We need to open the Lee and Lively Park swimming pools. We need to get our city animal shelter functioning correctly. We need to pay our police and firefighters competitively. We need to speed up infrastructure repairs for our local roads. We don't need to spend $125 million to move City Hall to North Irving. We do need to support the Irving Independent School District bond issue. My name is Matt Varble, and I'm running for City Council to accomplish those goals. I have been endorsed by the Irving Police Association, and I ask for your vote to change the status quo. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. We'll start the questions tonight with place 5. We'll go to Mr. Kohler first. What are your top 3 priorities for the city of Irving, and how do you plan to address them if elected?
Could you repeat that question one more time?
Sure. What are your top 3 priorities for the city of Irving, and how do you plan to address them if elected?
Top 3 priorities. Number 1 is true representation. The folks of Place 5 have spoken. They want to return back to 2-week trash pickups. Yes, I understand that there might be some issues going on with, available funds, but that's what creative minds and folks who actually do the work and research and the due diligence is to find a way to make things a reality for their constituents. Also, it's all about safety. Let's keep our neighborhoods safe. Folks were talking about, getting the most, the top-tier police officers and firefighters. Yes, again, in a perfect world, we'd have unlimited amount of resources. Obviously, it comes from you, whether business or homeowners. And we'd all agree that we want, as many of the top-tier police officers and firemen, but we have to be able to prioritize those limited funds. So, I'm sorry I'm out of time, so.
Right. Thank you. Mr. Stanford, same question. What are your top 3 priorities for the city of Irving, and how do you plan to address them if elected?
My top priority is to work on the permits and inspections department, get it to be more customer friendly to the citizens and to the contractors we hire so that we can maintain having high quality contractors that are willing to deal with the city. Also, I want to try and work on getting the roads repaired quicker and have more accountability on how they're taken out of service instead of just take it out for 6 months and no one know when it's going to be finished. And the last position would probably be trash pickup. Like pretty much everyone here, I'd like to go back to 2-a-day trash pickup eventually, but first we need to make sure that the trash department is fully staffed so that we don't run into the same issue where we need to cut back to once a week trash pickup again.
Great, thank you. Ms. Stroop, what are your top 3 priorities for the city of Irving, and how do you plan to address them if elected?
I think sometimes we have to go back to the basics. And by the basics, I mean simple citizen engagement and communication with our citizens. I think we have some gaps in that area. We have a great city. I think how we receive our information, it gets a little filtered out and it becomes into a rumor. Our public safety is going to be an ongoing issue. We're short officers, and actually we're short 100 people within our city services division. We're having a high car theft rate. We're having assaults. We just had a man pull out a gun at a road rage yesterday. And we're having theft of jewelry in other communities, and they're scared to even leave their house and go to parties. As far as the trash issue goes, I would like to examine privatization. They have different hiring practice than the cities if you want to go back to 2 days a week. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Varvel, what are your top 3 priorities for the city of Irving, and how do you plan to address them if elected?
Well, the number one thing, and what I've been saying since October of 2022, is we need to return to twice-a-week trash pickup. I'm glad that my opponents have adopted the same issue that I've been talking about for months, and that's an important issue from all the voters that I've talked to. We need better pay for our police officers. I'm the only candidate up here that has been endorsed by the Irving Police Association. They understand my vision as a 25-year human resources professional to address the compensation needs of our police force, which is only in the 65th percentile of all of Dallas-Fort Worth. That needs to be fixed immediately. We also need quicker infrastructure repairs. And I can't talk about how I'm going to solve each one of those issues in the time given, but what I can say is I'm the only person up here that serves in senior management for a Fortune 500 company, which happens to deal with routes and drivers. So I believe I am uniquely situated as a director of labor relations for this company that deals with routes and drivers to address the trash issue, which involves a number of factors that hopefully we can talk about further as we go along. Thank you.
Mr. Conowit, what are your top 3 priorities for the city of Irving, and how do you plan to address them if elected?
The first priority is a new Fire Station 8. So the current fire station by Lake Carolyn is too small. It cannot support the tremendous growth we've had here in the district. The way I would try to fix that is I would support the construction of a new fire station at the old DART bus station at Riverside and Northwest Highway. We could fit all the trucks in there. We could have an ambulance, Medicaid, which we don't have ambulance service in this district, and we can have immediate access to the lake with our fireboats. Protecting single-family homeowners is number 2. On the P&Z, when I was the chair, I opposed high-density developments next to single-family neighborhoods. Our single-family homeowners invest in their homes and their neighborhoods. They need to be protected from that. We can't sacrifice our single-family homeowners in the interest of just trying to provide massive apartments for developers coming onto our city. Finally, we need better schools. I recruited Great Hearts Irving to come here as a high-performing charter school. I'm currently working on bringing other high-performing charter schools. We need Irving to be a place where people can have other educational options so that families want to stay here and want to move here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Kabir, we'll start with you in place 3. Same question. What are your top 3 priorities for the city of Irving, and how do you plan to address them if elected?
As I spell out in my opening comment, out of 5, I think that the most important 3 one which I believe that I could be able to make a difference is economic growth and public safety and security and transparency and accountability. Now, when it comes to public safety and security, it is very important for the city and its officials and its law enforcement to maintain the safety and security of our community. And as one of the candidates just mentioned about the crime rate and things like that, that need to be addressed as quickly as it occurs. Number 2 is economic growth. Being a business graduate and being a business consultant, I know how to stimulate the entrepreneurship and promote them. by relaxing a little bit of the codes or revisit the codes to attract more businesses in our community. Thank you.
Yeah, no, a lot of these questions are a little bit more than 1-minute answers, so we're trying to keep the pace tonight, so I apologize if you can't get through everything, but try to get through the questions if you can. So
Thank you.
appreciate it. Mr. Zeski, same question. What are your top 3 priorities for the city of Irving, and how do you plan to address them if reelected?
Thank you. All right, so I think one of the most important things is that we need to be proactive instead of reactive. It's pretty easy to look around and see what's the 3, well, let's say ugliest. What's the 3 problems that leap out at you as you walk around? Well, it's pretty easy. When you see piles of trash that are 10 feet high in front of your yard, it looks terrible. When you see roads that are underserved and broken and sidewalks, it's pretty easy to say, hey, there's something wrong. And I would say probably the other thing that's easy to see as you drive around is panhandling and homelessness. And it's pretty easy to see those problems. I think those problems are things that come and go. I think what we can really work on is how we handle solving them. And so I'm going to suggest a couple different things that nobody seems to talk about, and that's customer service and communication. I think we need to go digital. We need to go to where we have a clearinghouse for every kind of complaint that you have, every problem that you have, and everybody in the world knows it. And it's not solved until we do it digitally, and you can see on there, hey, this is solved. So I think we really need to do a better job of communicating and a better job of providing a service to everybody, whether they're developers or citizens or whoever they are, whether they're trying to get a permit or trying to walk home.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Burton Zetti.
Thank you, David. It all, in my opinion, boils around the debt that we have in the city. I think that the amount of debt that we have in the city is the real roadblock, the real cause of why we have once-a-week trash pickup and why the sidewalks are really in bad shape, why the streets are, and why we have gotten rid of all of our pools. Right now, a little over 12.6% of our budget is for interest on our debt. And I know we have, it was mentioned at the Esplanade Neighborhood Association that we have $100 million in bonds that can be issued to do road improvements and sidewalk infrastructure stuff. The problem is they're all maxed out with the debt. And it's hard for them to maintain their AAA status and put in more debt. And they want to do 2 more basic entertainment districts, and it's just too much. So we need to look at ways to cut, and one of them is to reexamine the DART situation we have. $80 million goes to DART, and it's not safe to ride it after 6 p.m. That needs to change.
Great. Thank you. We'll go back to place 5 for our next question. We'll start with you, Mr. Stanford. Irving has about 50% or more rental population. How should the city address the need for housing across all income levels, and what would you contribute to the solution?
I think right now we have a fairly good mix of properties in all income levels. Right now, the biggest driver of prices is demand for the city. People are wanting to move here because it's a great place to live, and it's centrally located in the Metroplex. I don't think we need more low-end or high-end houses specifically, just more houses in general. Thank you.
Ms. Stroop, same question.
So Irving has a median household income of $67,000, individual income $34,000. District 5, where we live, has a median household income of $96,000 and $65,000, and some of the neighborhoods go up from there. For example, the Lakes is about $130,000. So we need to ask ourselves, where's the need in Irving? What is the land use? Do we have the land? Do we have the infrastructure in place? A lot of times we get these projects going and we don't quite have the infrastructure in place, and then people complain about all the traffic that we have, especially in Valley Ranch, where there's just a couple ways in and a couple ways out. We have to have some level of regulation and protection for environmental resources as well. And then we need to make sure development does not outpace our infrastructure. In the city, we also have programs on revitalization, home repairs, and first-time buyer opportunities up to $20,000 for a grant.
Mr. Varble?
I believe affordable housing is an important piece to the city's success. And beyond that, many of our elderly residents are being taxed out of their homes, and our city's motto is to live, work, and play. Every person from the highest paid to the lowest paid employee to our retired population should have a place to live in Irving. Homestead exemption and furthermore freezing property taxes are great ways of giving our elderly population tax relief. We have the 12th highest renter population in the nation, and affordable housing solutions such as apartments create a cheaper and more accessible way for employees to live and build a future in Irving. Something that recently came up as a vote was the Affordable Housing Initiative by the Palladium Group up in Valley Ranch. And some of my opponents are anti-apartment building when that is the most basic and easiest way to move as a path towards home ownership, which is the ultimate goal. A lot of people don't start off in life saying, I want to stay in an apartment for the rest of my life, so we have to be sympathetic to that. The city posted a budget surplus, and portions of those dollars should be used to provide property tax relief. Irving's a great city, but we are number 128 out of 200 in North Texas for property tax rate. That's not acceptable.
Mr. Cronowit?
So the percentage of homeownership in Irving is only 37%. It's the lowest rate in the whole state for cities over 100,000 residents. And especially for District 5, we have way too many apartments. Our percentage of apartments there is way out of line, even compared to the other districts within the city. So with respect to District 5, we need more single-family homes. We want to support our single-family homeowners. I'm very glad to see new homes being built north of Fleur. I'm glad to see that there's a residential component to the Exxon property. I want to make sure that if I'm on city council and I'm working with the developers for the Texas Stadium site, that whatever goes in there actually benefits the homeowners of District 5, that there's a residential component there, that there's a quality of life being considered there as well, because we don't have a rec center in District 5, we don't have a library. We want Irving to be a place where families want to come to be able to work, play, and be safe. And so for that reason, I'm opposed to more apartments in District 5. We already have more than our fair share.
Mr. Kohler?
So as everybody knows, Irving isn't that large. I mean, we only have 67 square miles worth of land. And we're going to be facing a build out in the foreseeable future. So as you know, cities are known as being the most culturally diverse population within the nation. And with that comes very diverse lifestyles. Some of us prefer single-family homes. Some of us, whether it's an option or not, or if it's not ideal, prefer multifamily. Now, multifamily includes apartments and condos. So I personally prefer home ownership, but I understand it might not be ideal. But let's be real here. Single-family lots are actually less efficient when generating a tax revenue base. So, and I'll give you a small example. If you were to take 1 acre of land, put a home on a single-family home that's roughly appraised value about $400,000, take that same acre of land and stack 3 condos on top of it that are about $300,000 per, we're going to have an additional $500,000 worth of appraised value to tax upon. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go back to place 3. Mr. Zeski? Would you like me to repeat the question? So Irving has a over 50% rental population. How should the city address the needs for housing across all income levels, and what would you contribute to the solution?
Okay, well, in the time that I've been on council, it's only a couple years, but I've already voted and in a wide variety of housing, and that's always going to be the answer, is something complicated. It has to be solved here, 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 there. So what do we have? Well, I voted for on MacArthur. We've got a tax credit, affordable housing unit going up. Home for the Habitat for Humanity has come back to Irving after being gone for a long time, and they're teaming with Pioneer, and they're going to come up with 3 houses that are going to be a great deal for somebody. Just this morning, I was at a meeting, and Alexander Homes has a new development, and they haven't even broken ground yet. They're clearing brush, and they've sold 20 of 73 lots, 73 houses that are go from $1.8 to $2.8 million. So our biggest need is for senior housing. And I will say the biggest thing that anybody up here will ever do manifested itself yesterday when Wells Fargo broke ground on a new office building. It's those new jobs fixes affordable housing, and that's the best thing we can do.
Thank you. Mr. Burton Zeddy.
Yes, the reason why we have a lot of renters here in Irving is primarily because how Irving developed with respect to the Ben Carpenter project in Las Colinas and all the warehouses and so forth. The idea was we needed to provide housing for people who work there. Now what we're having in the airport is even a more enhancement of that, because there's a huge amount of warehousing that's being built in airport property, and it's all tied into stuff that's going to come up from Mexico probably, as far as manufacturing. That's going to be moved from China to Mexico and so forth. But I think that we need to protect the homeowners here. They're totally underserved, and we have enough apartments, and the problem too is that many of the homes are being bought by investors. The 60% of the new home sales were by investors, so probably 20% of the homes out there, 15%, are now rentals, and it's another potential problem.
Thank you. Mr. Kabir.
Affordable housing question has came in last few years from time to time. You know, all the development which is happening in Las Colinas and Valley Ranch and other areas where the corporate companies are based, but we have to focus on the southern part of the city as well, which includes the District 3 and 5 and other areas. So affordable housing is, you know, it's a issue of the city to think seriously about to solve. If I get elected, I would ask the city to see there are a lot of land parcels which are owned by the city. I think they could offer those parcels to the developers so that they could build some reasonable priced homes for our city residents. Number 2 is, I think we need to revisit the what you call the permit requirements. In the southern part of the city, or especially in District 3, there are single-family homes which are sitting in a quarter acre of land or more. I think if the city allows them to make it 2 parcels out of that 1 parcel and build the homes which is going to be very economical and affordable, I think that we could solve the problem of the housing. Thank you.
We'll go back to place 5. Ms. Stroop, we'll start with you. 74% of Irving's tax base is corporations. What is your stance on economic development and job creation in Irving while ensuring the city remains accessible and affordable for residents?
We do have a large commercial base, and when businesses are looking to invest here, they look for a couple things. And the trend right now is that they're looking for a great educational system. So they're looking for workforce because as we've heard from time and time again, our workforce shortage is everywhere. We just had a meeting the other day, and we found out it's all across the board. We need to have our infrastructure in place for this growth. The city needs to be appealing to attract, grow, and retain people here, businesses and residents. We need to partner with our school systems. We have great CTE programs to also attract people here. We need to have the quality of life. We need to have our parks, trails, our little splash pads for the kids in place. Our schools, cities, chambers, and citizens sharing information is vital to economic development and revitalization because we as a community need to support it.
Mr. Varble?
If you go to the city's website and look at the SWOT analysis that was posted in 2017 regarding our city's economic development, they listed two major issues. One is a disconnect in communities. The second is a lower K through 12 rating than peer cities. 6 years later, the Irving ISD ranks number 50 out of 100 in schools for the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. It's not a knock on the work of the teachers and the admin and what they do for the district, but the question is regarding economic development. When businesses are looking to relocate, they look for two things. First, they look for affordable housing. And second, they look for quality schools. So supporting the school bond initiative and investing in our schools is investing in our economic development. Before we spend and give away millions of dollars in incentives to bring businesses here, we need to focus on schools and improving the public school district by supporting the bond initiative. And we need to focus on affordable housing, unlike my opponents who are against apartment buildings and multifamily units. And we need to focus on bringing back city services like twice-a-week trash pickup that the current residents pay for. I want to bring more businesses here, both for growing our tax base and our population, but before we dump millions upon millions of dollars into an economic development fund and continue to do so, we should be focused on the current citizens and increasing the quality of life for everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Conoway?
It's not enough to assume that corporations will stay here in Irving just because we're halfway between DFW Airport and Love Field. We know that Exxon is leaving us. We also have to be aware of why Fluor and Flowserve are here. They're here in part because Exxon is here. We have to be mindful of what's going to happen to them. Also in the news recently is Exxon is wanting to buy Pioneer Resources. So these corporations that we depend upon and assume will be there to support the 74% of our tax revenue, we can't take them for granted. So what do they want? Well, they don't want homelessness in the city. There's a discussion on city council about using city resources to build a homeless shelter here in the city. Nobody knows where that's going to be. It's not being said, but they don't want that. We have to have laws that actually are going to prevent all the panhandling that we see. Corporations aren't going to come here if there's panhandling everywhere on the streets, and we're seeing a rise of that, especially since Dallas passed their own anti-panhandling ordinance back in October. And schools, like I said, I've already helped to bring great arts here. More charter schools can come here and immediately provide better school options for families so that these businesses will want to come here with their families, buy homes, and have their kids in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kohler?
So we all know that having a strong Irving economy creates a larger tax base where we can create more tax revenue to create more and offer more amenities and comforts that we all enjoy here living in Irving. But like I mentioned in 2019, sales tax revenue is a huge part of what grants the amenities that we have. I believe last year in our CAFR we raised almost $100 million worth of sales tax revenue. Back in 2017, our per capita was $289 per person. Now it's $382, almost $100 per person. And with that, it raises tens and upon tens of millions of dollars of additional revenue that takes care of many of the needs that we're all asking for. So like I said before, live, work in Irving, spend in Irving, and perhaps we could adopt a policy where the city actually does the exact same thing. If it's feasible and it doesn't sacrifice value, let's keep our tax dollars here in Irving. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stanford?
I think we need to work on revitalizing a lot of Irving, try and encourage these large corporations that are looking at Irving to look at possibly moving their headquarters to the Plymouth Park area where they tore down what was Fazio's, and also try and encourage businesses to look at the old Texas Stadium site as a place to put up their headquarters. The Texas Stadium site has great access with three highways right there at it, and conveniently located between Love Field and DFW. We should also try and work on lowering our property tax rates so that we can help encourage businesses to come here with lower costs.
Thank you. Now we'll move to place 3, Mr. Burton Zetti.
Well, I think, again, we need to look at cuts. We've lost the Cowboys, and I think one of the problems we have with our budget was we were on a momentum of spending because of the revenue that the Texas Stadium and the Cowboys, the parking that we had out there, brought in. We need to look at ways to save money, especially, there will be corporations coming in. You don't have to entice them very much, I don't think, because this is a very vibrant area of the country. But we need to ask them to give away tax breaks to these corporations because they come here is really wrong unless they're buying in the local area. They buy in the local area, they accelerate the businesses that work here. As a small businessman, with screen printing once upon a time, I'd call around and they'd say, no, we don't need any T-shirts or caps. We get all our stuff from our headquarters in Rochester, New York. Well, I mean, that's not helping businesses here. If we want to give breaks to corporations, we need to see what they're doing to buy in the local area. Pretty short and sweet there.
Thank you. Mr. Kabir.
Thank you. Well, the city of Irving need both, the big corporations as well as the small businesses. You know, we have to maintain a balance of, or city should promote the programs where they could provide the incentives for attracting big businesses as well as promoting the small businesses. I think, let me just, we have enough of the big corporations, but let's talk about how do we improve and attract the small businesses, which is the key for any city. I think we need to, first of all, the city has to create a business-friendly environment, meaning that we need to give some incentives, we need to revisit the policies and permits, we need to revisit the signage of the businesses because the codes has been changed from time to time, and then the food permit trading and things like that need to be done to serve the service and hospitality industry. So we need to have both. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zeski.
The city of Irving spends millions of dollars each year trying to keep and retain businesses, much less bring in new businesses. And it's very competitive and cutthroat. And there are literally other cities in this metroplex that are giving away much more than the house. It's unbelievable. But I believe almost every single one of them is worth it. You give tax credits, you don't give away money. It's money that they're earning, and you're helping them get in here to help us. So you're helping them get in the door, you're helping them build, and you're helping them create jobs for us. It's a tried and true method, and it works a great deal. The infrastructure does need to be there. Most of our corporations that we have in here are actually pretty good partners. I think we need to stress that. They need to be involved in our school districts. They need to be involved in our community service, our volunteer efforts, and most of them are, and it really makes our city stronger and better.
Thank you. Now we'll go back to place 5. We'll start with Mr. Varble. Our pools, our kids' sports, our parks and rec. What would you like to see for a plan for our parks and rec department?
I'd like to see us open the Lee and Lively Park pools. It's ridiculous that we're continuing to have this debate. I would like to see increased funding for that purpose. I would like to see partnering with the Urban Gardens Group as well to look at enhancing some of our existing green space that we have within the city. I think that there's been this initiative that's been going on for a number of years to close down the community swimming pools and move towards privatization or telling people to go somewhere else. And I really think that's the wrong direction. So I'd like to see that change.
Thank you. Mr. Cronowitz.
So I've served as the chair of the Y Board, served on the Bond Commission, and in both of those capacities, I got to learn a lot about the park system that we have here. At one point, we had an opportunity for a new YMCA at the northeast corner of Wingren and 183, and unfortunately, there was a change in city leadership, and that got killed, also a change in the school district leadership. But we can partner with the school district. We can partner with the YMCA, and maybe with the University of Dallas to come up with a park system where we can have a robust offering for the families in District 5, have a great facility to serve all of us. Now, as far as the pools go, we have to understand what's going on. To just simply think, oh, the pools are being closed, that's terrible, let's throw a bunch of money at it, that's not thinking through the issue, that's not being smart, that's not recognizing the age of the pools and when they were built. Let's talk about being creative and finding solutions so that we can have maybe year-round pools, maybe pools where there's actually other functions that go along with it, like kids' parties. When I was on the Bond Commission, we toured the rec centers in other cities like Grapevine and Capel. They actually brought in revenue enough to actually keep those pools afloat. They paid for themselves. We should look at smart things like that, smart solutions like that, so we can have pools for all of our residents year-round and that are going to be modern and current and not 60 years old where they're doomed to fail.
Thank you. Mr. Kohler.
All right, I'll be honest. I'm just a new parent now, so recreational centers and pools have never been on my radar as an Irving resident. I'll be honest, full disclosure. But when I started trying to, explore the options of trying to teach my kid how to swim and exposing him to the water, then it got on my radar, and I started looking around and trying to find areas to where I could teach my new son how to swim. But with that said, a community leader has been championing the need for a specific recreational center for now 20 years. And I noticed that the question was, what do we want? It's not what we want, it's about what you want. And that's what our job up here as councilmen here is, to bridge your vision, wants, and needs with the city administration to make those dreams and visions a reality. So we're representing you and your interests and not our own. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stanford.
We need to look at renovating or replacing the pools at Lively Park and making sure that all of the pools are in good condition whenever we do have them open. We also need to look at finding ways to get more shade at the pools. I know growing up I went to Center Park and there were very few awnings or anything over the pool area where you could be in some shade. And we all know how hot it gets in the summer. It would also be nice to have more indoor pools that are accessible to everyone throughout the city, where we could have those pools open year-round.
Thank you. Ms. Stroop.
I have to go back to history a little bit here in 2019. Actually, Mark and I were on the Bond Council together. We had an overview of how much the pools were being used. And so now we are here today. We've kind of had a COVID reset, if you will, where the pools weren't getting used and we're having workforce issues. So that is something that really needs to be evaluated. Me as a parent, I like the idea of an all year-round use pool, a splash pad for the little ones, a pool for the others. We need to make it affordable. Grand Prairie has a partnership with Epic, and it costs a Grand Prairie resident as an individual, if you just go in, $29. That's a lot of money. I don't know how much Wet and Wild is, but we need to put that into consideration. And we also need to ask ourselves too, the needs for the pools, is it something that we need our kids to do? Or do we need some other programs as well for a targeted age range for some of these middle school kids to keep them busy and creative during the summer as well?
Thank you. Now we'll move to place 3. We'll start with Mr. Kabir.
Well, the issue of swimming pool closings is a big issue to the community and to the residents of Irving. And as a resident of Irving, my wife also goes and sometimes use the swimming pool over in Heritage Town area. And these closures are not acceptable. I think the issue is not only just the maintenance, but I think the city has been taking a stand on the funding issue. If we allocate the funds and if we are fiscal responsible and, accountability is in place, then these public programs and these facilities which provide some services and usage to our community, I think it should be looked into and kept it open. So I would, as a community member, I would request the city to consider this, to open up these facilities year round. Thank you.
Mr. Zetsky.
So in my years of service, one thing I've done is I spent 35 straight years coaching at least one sports team. I've spent 25 years umpiring, refereeing. I dare say that I've spent more time in the rec centers and fields of this city than anybody in this building, but maybe not. But what I do know is that things have changed a lot. And when we talk about trash and roads and everything, what we do have to realize is that as the world keeps moving and things are very different. Well, I grew up playing baseball down at the river bottoms. The kids nowadays want to play soccer. They want to play cricket. There's a lot of, it's a different world. And I will say that kids really don't care for our pools. They want a water park. They want an aquatic. So we have to adjust to these things. I think we're all going to get what we want, which is kids doing what they want. It's just going to take some time to make that transition, and it's going to take some money.
Thank you. Mr. Burton Zeddy. One
One area that I don't want to cut is parks and recreation. I think pools need to come back. There's been a chart of what's called the inversion of interest rates, where the short-term interest rates, 2 years or less, go higher than the long-term interest rates that are 10 years or longer. And each time you had an inversion, there's always been a recession. And we had an inversion earlier this year. So I think this is, for the last 50 years, this has been an infallible thing. I don't see it not happening here in the future, and I think one of the things to keep kids under control is to have plenty of places where they can go to let off a little steam. And the parks are going to be very important. That's definitely one place that I do not want to cut. We need pools and some of them all year long. I like that idea. So that's my position on it.
Great, thank you. Now we'll move back to place 5. We'll start with you, Mr. Cronowit. What is your approach to fiscal responsibility and transparency in local government, including the most important job of our city council, which is budgeting, taxes, and public spending?
Well, obviously, the government needs to be open and apparent, open to everybody and transparent. The city does a good job of that. Everything that goes on with the city is posted on its website. Everyone is welcome to go to board meetings, work sessions, city council meetings to understand what's going on, including the budget retreat and budget workshop. That takes a lot of effort to understand what all the city's needs are. I've participated in that on the bond commission, understanding what those needs are. And but it's a huge study going into what all the financial considerations are for the budget, and the city council does a great job as far as pursuing that and making smart decisions for how the monies are spent. And then as far as like roads and streets, we have to make sure those are adequately funded, parks and rec, police, all our first responders. And so the public is aware of what's going on. They should pay attention to what those meetings, what's occurring in those meetings and what the decisions are.
Thank you. Mr. Kohler.
So anyone who knows me as being the get the most bang for your buck representative, whether it was for my, my battalion agent, my purchasing agent job, or as a condo association treasurer, or, representing the U.S. military in Afghanistan. I'm all about getting the most bang for the buck, because it's easy to spend other people's money, right? But when it's our own, we got to remain diligent about assuring that the administration is doing everything they can to stretch every taxpayer dollar to the fullest. And like I mentioned before, in a perfect world, we'd have unlimited amount of funds, and we'd have unlimited amount of personnel, and we'd have the top-tier police officers. We'd never have a shortage of teachers. We wouldn't have panhandlers at the major intersections. Every homeless person would have a shelter to go to overnight and a hot meal. But we live in the real world, and we have a limited amount of resources that we got to learn to prioritize. So a council that's able to collaborate effectively and hold our administration accountable has never been more important. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stanford.
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. What is your approach to fiscal responsibility and transparency in local government, including budgeting, taxes, and public spending?
I think the city does a great job on maintaining the transparency with the budget posted online and for everyone to go look at. And we need to make sure that we keep the budget in line and try and reduce costs where we can, but not at the detriment to the city. The police are adequately funded. We're not in the bottom 50%. We're not in the top 10%. The parks need funding in order to maintain the rec centers and the pools. And we need to focus where we budget and make sure that it's targeted to help the citizens and to make sure it makes economic sense.
Thank you. Ms. Stroop.
I think the city council and the city staff work really well together on the budget and fiscal responsibility and transparency. I myself am a little on the frugal side, but I like to spend money in other areas. City government works the same way. When they decide to spend a lot of money, it's usually for a larger project on a larger scale and for the future. I have an example of fiscal responsibility. While I was on the bond task force, myself and another member went down to investigate an ask of $5 million for a little project called Safety Town that was in our bond. And myself, a council member, an assistant city manager, the police, other volunteers, Irving High School, we all came together and wiped that $5 million off the bond, and it came down to zero.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Varble.
Yeah, let's first talk about transparency. In the beginning, the city of Irving denied that they were looking at moving City Hall or building a new City Hall. And it's only because of the information request that I submitted that I received over 500 emails of internal communications of the city, where not only is this a very advanced discussion, there's a price tag of $125 million being discussed about spending to move City Hall to North Irving. So that issue is now out in the community as a direct result of my efforts towards transparency. I said in my opening statement that I support transparency. This is a big example of where there's a lack of transparency and where I would bring transparency to the City Council with respect to this boondoggle project that they are looking at. It's the wrong areas. Let's talk about fiscal responsibility. Why are our police only paid in the 65th percentile of Dallas-Fort Worth? Why do we have 30 vacancies in the police department? Because we can't attract and retain police officers because the city's not focused on the right priorities. We need to be spending on the right priorities, such as our police, our sanitation department, returning to twice-a-week trash pickup, and not moving City Hall to North Irving. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move to place 3. We'll start with Mr. Zeski.
Sure, we all believe in transparency. We work hard. There's laws set in place that almost keep us from trying to be too sneaky or to hide things. But if you got a pen and paper, write this number down. This is my telephone number. You can call me anytime and I'll help you with it. 972-257-3335. I'll be glad to explain anything I can to you. Part of the problem is not transparency. Part of the problem is interpretation. And so what does that mean? Well, we've been sitting here less than an hour, and I've already heard 5 money mistakes made by candidates. They represented something that literally wasn't the truth of the way it worked. Now, were they really wrong? Were they really being untransparent? No, they just got it wrong a little bit. They misunderstood a little bit. I would be glad to explain. I think what I talked about earlier is our need for communication. That's where we need to focus on, and it'll help us with our transparency.
Thank you. Mr. Burton Zetti.
I think transparency is very important, especially with respect to how the money is spent, especially with regards to the bonds. When they get bond approval, they don't issue the bonds necessarily right away. They issue them either according to need or according to a design on the economics of the situation in the city's budget. But to try and find what's going on with these bonds is like pulling teeth. They have, for instance, an item called interest fund. You can see that in 2021, the interest paid on bonds was $64 million. The interest paid on bonds in 2022 was $110 million. It's quite an increase there. It's now 12.6% of the city budget. And we need more transparency to see what's going on there. It's easy to hide things. You know, the figures never lie, but liars sometimes figure. One of the things that was not transparent was the 70-30 liquor thing. It was said I think in a city work session, you need to have both sides of the issue, especially with regard to city council members that really don't know that part of the issue. You can get one side and they can be conned. So that needs to be important in a work session.
Thank you. Mr. Kabir.
Thank you. Transparency and accountability, I believe that the government works best when it opens to resolve to the people it serves. I will make sure our residents of Irving have access to information and their concerns are going to be taken seriously. You know, the simple thing is to stop the wasteful expenses and prioritize our requirements of our constituents. That is what we have to look into and prioritize accordingly. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll go back to place 5, and there's a question from the audience. Irving has a highly, this is for Mr. Kohler. Irving has a highly praised library system. In light of the book bans being considered not only in Texas but nationwide, who do you think should make decisions about books in our public libraries?
I'm so glad to get this question. So there's been a lot of talk about banning books. I don't know who's trying to say that we're going to ban books, but look, we're not in Nazi Germany. I know that it's kind of synonymous, but let me just tell you a real life experience. Yes, I heard the rumors. I heard the rumors about sexually explicit books that are in the Irving Library. So I went and visited the South Campus. Looked at this list that was provided to me, found a book, and looked at it, and it was on the second shelf, easily. And I forgot to mention, it's in the kids zone. Now, we're not talking about a teenager zone. We're talking about a little kid zone, and we're talking about 4, 5-year, 6-year-olds that are being, let loose inside this kid zone. Parents saying, "Hey, go find me a book." To make a short story, well, a long story short, I say yeah, is I actually saw realistic drawings of genitalia. And I'm sorry, as a parent, look, I have that choice, just like any other parent has that choice of whether they're going to sexually educate their kid when it's appropriate. All right, so we need to have some kind of parental control or some kind of awareness, not a book banning, but some kind of informational process in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stanford?
I don't think there should be any type of book banning. What should determine if the book is in the library is, do people check it out to read or not? And if it does have sexually explicit drawings like Mr. Kohler mentioned, have that in an area that's restricted from young kids, yet still be available if the parent wants to go get that book and let their kid read it.
Ms. Stroop, and just remind you the question, who do you think should make decisions about books in our libraries?
I think the librarian should make it. We have protocol in place for these type of measures in the United States and surrounding libraries. The school system works a little differently than the public school system does. We have protocol in place. If I were to go to a library and decide that this book doesn't need to be on this shelf and what is it doing here, then I simply fill out a form. And I give the librarian the autonomy to do what I feel is the right thing so we don't get into a censorship issue, which can get us into big trouble as a city. We are in a world where every action has a reaction. And because I simply don't like the book or don't like it for my child, and there are a lot of books, but I don't want someone to come into our libraries and draw attention and start taking books that I like, that I don't find offensive either. That's why we have protocol in place to limit hostility and let the librarian do the right thing. If there is a problem then we need to investigate it further.
Thank you. Mr. Varble?
I think this issue that one of my opponents is running on is focusing entirely on the wrong things for the city of Irving. If you're concerned about content, start with this, your cell phone, and monitoring that. We need to allow parents to be parents. If you took a look at what the Texas legislature did today, they've already addressed this issue by passing House Bill 900 called the Reader Act. That addresses a lot of the concerns. They also passed House Bill 2127 today, concerning local regulations. So this issue is going to be preempted by the state of Texas. And I think returning to twice-a-week trash pickup is much more important than about worrying about books at the library, because we can actually exercise our rights as parents to decide what's appropriate for our children and what isn't. And I think that we also need to avoid violating the First and 14th Amendment, which is what happened in Llano County that tried to do something similar and received a federal injunction just last week from a Trump-appointed federal judge over a lawsuit. So we have to avoid creating legal exposure for the city of Irving. And I don't find particular redeeming value in a lot of these books, but I understand my role as somebody who would be on the city council that we need to be compliant with federal law.
Thank you. Mr. Cronowitz?
Yeah, there's tons of studies showing that pornography is a leading cause to child trafficking and prostitution. This is a much bigger concern than getting your trash picked up once or twice a week. We cannot use city dollars to pay for patent pornography. As it stands, the city already has a rule required by federal law not allowing pornography to be accessed through the internet at our libraries. That same policy should apply to printed materials as well. The idea that this pornography is immediately accessible to the kids to our teens and our young children is abhorrent. We need to actually have our libraries be a safe place where books that are actually educational and beneficial to our kids can be seen by them, not actually where they're exposed to something that's going to be detrimental to their well-being. Everybody's used to movie ratings, G, PG, R, X, double X, triple X. So when we're talking about these books, we're not talking about just, Winnie the Pooh, G and PG. We're talking about patently graphic things that our kids should not be seeing. And the Irving Library has no place having that available to our kids. The decision should be made by the library board. So if the librarian is just making these decisions by herself, she needs to be, or himself, she needs to be accountable to the library board. And if the library board's not getting it done, then they need to answer to the city council, your representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to place 3, and we'll start with Mr. Burton Zetti.
Yes, I'm going to say that this is a very big and crucial issue here to me. If you go to a website that has 5 examples of pornography in our library, it's called stoplibraryporn.com. You can see whether these books are pornographic or not. Pornography, in my opinion, has no place ever in our library, not paid for by public funds. It's well documented in science that pornography is just as addictive as heroin. And I'm sure everybody knows some family who's usually the husband, but sometimes the wife, who's addicted to it. It's a terrible thing when instead of developing relationships, people become objects. So how it should be handled, well, that's subject to discussion. But I don't think we should leave it up to the librarians. They're too liberal. We've never been able to get to first base with any of the librarians here over the last 3 years. So I don't see working through the librarians is going to be the answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Kabir.
This is a very important subject, especially for the young and the youth and the kids. When we have rules and regulations and laws, and a certain age required for driving, say for example, smoking and drinking. When we have the age restrictions is because of a reason that, if it's underage, the people may not be able to drive or conduct themselves in a proper way when they smoke or drink. The same way, the sexual education or content accessible to children may lead the same way. And I think there should be some restrictions in providing those contents to the underage kids. And the librarian and the library board could implement what is needed to be implemented to follow the state or federal laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zeski.
Thank you. I don't think anybody in this building is in favor of banning books. I don't think anybody in this building is in favor of pornography. What we have here is a problem that happens over and over again in our cities and our governments, and that's we got to deal with such large numbers, and you try to do it economically, and you try to do it, and so we wind up getting processed as opposed to being handled by individuals, personally, one-on-one. And I think that in the past, the librarians have made the decision on what books are in there, or I'll tell you this, it goes simply to something even simpler than that. Does it get checked out or not? Is it useful? And so that determines it. If the citizens all want a different method, if it's not working well, then we need to change it. So perhaps we need to go to a city, the library board review panel or something. I can tell you nobody wants to sit and read thousands of books. But to me, it goes back again to communications and customer service. Are we really going to listen to you guys? Are we going to communicate to you guys? Tell us why we are doing things. Tell you why we want to do things. And listen to you why you want things done. And that's what we need to do.
Great, thank you. So we'll move back to place 5. We'll start with Mr. Stanford. Serving on the city council is a big job that doesn't get paid. I think the stipend now is $780 a month for the wear and tear on your car. So the question is, how will you balance your current life with also being a city councilman over the next 3 years?
I'll focus on trying to maintain my current life, but I'll also make sure I try and get on and respond to emails after hours so that I'm at least responsive to the citizens who make comment or try and comment to me. And also focus on trying to make sure that I'm available for all the meetings that the city council has and to take calls as needed for the city.
Thank you. Ms. Stroop.
I'm self-employed, so I have the availability to be as busy as I want to be. I juggle a lot of stuff right now. I'm here, there, and everywhere, and I'm an open book. If anybody has anything to ask me after this forum, feel free to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Varble.
I have the unique luxury of working virtually, even though I serve as the Director of Labor Relations for a Fortune 500 company. So I don't have a courthouse I have to show up to. I haven't reported to an office building since 2015. So the advantage that I represent to you, the voters, is that you have someone with the experience that I have that is available due to the virtual setting in which I perform most of my duties. So I am more available than almost anyone else who works full-time for a living. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cronowit.
Yeah, I'm a lawyer, so I work in a law firm. I'm in charge. I'm the director of litigation at our law firm. We have 15 lawyers in Houston, Dallas, Little Rock, and Nashville for that matter. And with that, I'm able to cover all my legal matters such that if something is needed at City Hall, I can come down here immediately. Otherwise, I'm able to schedule things as needed. Being a lawyer, and the director of litigation, I can attend board meetings. I can go to civic functions. It gives me a lot of flexibility in my schedule to attend to the needs of the community.
Thank you. Mr. Kohler.
So as you know, Place 5's former councilman is Oscar Ward. He is terming out. Also, the state representative who used to represent me was Rodney Anderson for Place 105. I've never given one single solitary dollar to either one of those representatives, but every time they have always answered my call and they always share information with me. And that's what I think that this job is all about. It's about remaining available and accessible to you, because we answer to you. And most importantly, yeah, you just ruined my train of thought with the sign there. Yeah, that's a good one too. But yeah, you know, this is a part-time position. I think somebody mentioned it's like $900 a month, but we need council members who treat this honor as a full-time responsibility. And like Heather here, I'm a small business owner, and a lot of times even my condo association kind of frowns about all the availability that I have attending to their needs. In fact, they didn't want me to share my public information, contact information, saying I was going to get too busy, but I love serving the people and being available. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. We'll move to Place 3. Same question, Mr. Kabir.
Yes. I am a business consultant and self-employed, and I only work on the projects when it comes. So my availability is always going to be there. And that is the only thing I have. I mean, I'm not, that rich, but I have time available to do the community service. So my commitment, if I get elected, is to serve the district and to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zetsky.
Again, that number is 972-257-3335. Call me anytime. If there's anything I do, it's show up. And I show up to serve you, and I show up to help you. I've already changed my life considerably since I've taken this job, so I would be available to show up again and to show up at something else. And to be honest with you, I love Irving. And to be honest with you, I love most of you guys. And I will show up, and it will be fun. And I promise you, we'll work hard and we'll get most of it fixed.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bertonzetti.
I work for a local title company. I'm a plant manager. You probably won't know what that is, but most of the stuff that's coming before the city council, we in the title business have already seen over a number of years. I've been either in the title business or in the oil and gas land business for about 45 years. But I can have a very flexible schedule because of my relationship with the owner of the company and because of my value to the company. So in my campaigning, I emphasize to people that if you do have a problem and you've gone to the city first, if you have a problem and you've gone to the police, that I want to be, and then you don't get satisfaction. I want to be an advocate with you. I want to be there, and we'll go in together. So I will have that kind of time available, and I think that's important. I think in the future it's valuable to realize the value of your employees who work for you. So just like the city council here, the payment has not been raised, I don't know, what, 20 years, something like that, or more. We need to address that. Are these people just deadbeats? I think that they deserve a living wage too. Now, not excessive, but that should be addressed in the future as well.
Great, thank you. We'll have the last question. We'll start with place 5 with Ms. Stroop. So we had a few questions. What have you done to secure at least 4 additional votes on campaign issues? How do you plan to engage with the community and other council members? We are a 9-person city council. You have to get 5 votes to get anything passed. Tell us how you would convince your fellow city council members to get 5 votes on any issue.
Well, it certainly wouldn't be bribery. It would be good old-fashioned communication and transparency. I believe in having a conversation, meeting for lunch, talking about the issues. A lot of times that's what you miss when you are in a disagreement over something, a multifamily unit apartment complex, a pool. You know, these are issues that can be resolved the good old-fashioned way. And so it's just simply talking it out. There's, you know, as Paul was referencing, I mean, you're only making $900 a month here. You know, we're not scoring big dollars here. What's the incentive with not getting along with someone or doing a power play? Just talk it out, make a decision, and have good sense.
Great, thank you. Mr. Varble.
For 25 years, I've practiced in the field of labor relations management. My entire job and career is based upon getting people to agree, because if we don't agree, guess what? There's a strike, and that doesn't help anybody. And so I professionally am somebody who would be a compliment to the council, and I'm asking you to hire me because of my skill set in labor relations management, because this would be utilized to work with parties that may not agree on the same subject. I wouldn't get to where I was in my career if I wasn't able to make different parties agree. Doesn't mean you can make people agree, you negotiate, and it's give and take, and it's working with your party and the people across the table from you or with you. Sometimes I have more trouble with my own team than I have negotiating with the union. But if I can reach labor agreements with the Teamsters and the United Steelworkers Union and the United Auto Workers Union, I'm sure we can work something out amongst the members of the Irving City Council with me as a member to negotiate an agreement that's agreeable to all the parties.
Thank you. Mr. Cronowit.
Well, as an attorney, I'm negotiating all the time on my civil cases with the court, the other side, the other members of my firm, and always trying to get things worked out. It's part of what a litigator does. And beyond that, in my years of serving on different boards here in the city of Irving, I think I've demonstrated to my other board members, to the city staff, and to the city council members that go to our meetings and actually review the advisory opinions or suggestions that we make, that I approach everything reasonably. Obviously, we're not going to agree on everything. I have a different view politically about different cases, different matters that come up before us. But I always approach it with an open mind with an open discussion at the meetings. It's transparent, everybody understands what's going on. When I was the chair of the P&Z or the TIF, I was always very open and letting everybody have their say. And then we have a decision, we have our vote, and then we go from there.
Thank you. Mr. Kohler.
Straight off the cuff. So, yeah, this is about representing your needs and your interests, but I can't do it alone. Like you mentioned, I need 5 others to make anything happen. And if we had, countless amount of tax revenues, each of us would get exactly what we want. But we've got to learn how to get along. We don't always have to agree, but we at least got to come to the table. And like you said, have an open mind. Get rid of, leave the biases and the misconceptions at the door. One of my things that I've always said is, miscommunication is relationship killer. I mean, how many of us have lost a good relationship with somebody because of some kind of online misinformation or disinformation? But we got to come to the table because we all are here for you. And we can all come to a common ground to make your dreams and visions a reality. So thank you.
Mr. Stafford. I'm sorry, Mr. Stanford.
Open communication with the other board members is key to getting anything done, and paying attention to what they're wanting and negotiating with them. And listening to good ideas like Mr. Zeski's idea about going more digital for everything in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with, I think, Mr. Gavar, or I'm sorry, Mr. Zetsky, you're up next.
That's a great question. I love that. I will say that right now I don't know if it's blessed or not, but we have a mayor that really never tries to put together a 5-4 deal and have everything done. I think he really lets the city council members listen to their constituents, come back and vote with their mind and with their heart and what they think is best for the citizens. And so I don't think there's, what a lot of people would probably call a negative strong-arming or coalition building someplace. I would like to say that since these guys are all trying to replace Oscar Ward, he's a great man and he's done a great job of listening to you guys and representing you guys and being true to you guys. So I'd like to just give a little nod out to him.
Yeah,
but
we give a little round of applause for Oscar. 9 years in service.
But having said all that, I don't necessarily want to agree with every city council member every time, but I would say it's 75% of the votes are unanimous, but when you're on the wrong end of a 5-4 vote, it hurts. And I think that's an acquired skill, is being good at people and being persuasive, yet letting them be true to themselves too. Anyway, I'm going to work more on it. I love it.
Great. Mr. Burton Zetti.
Well, I think that you have to get along. None of the people on the city council are going to agree all the time. So you can't bear a grudge. But at the same time, you have to support your convictions. And if you're the type of person that's going to go along to get along, you're not going to get a whole lot done. But at the same time, once you know that you can't get something passed, then it's time to move on. So there's coalitions that back all the candidates, and eventually you find out who they are, and you know what can and can't be done. So that's probably the important thing, not to necessarily burn your bridges, but really support your own values and be true to what you stand for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kabir.
Thank you. The most important thing to be in a board or in a team to work together is to know each other and build relations. And then based on the issues, we have to trust each other. And then we have to have a conversation and a negotiation. to set up the priorities, which priority, which item or which agenda has to be addressed first. And then we need to build a general consensus to have that, pass. For the best interest of, the bills or ordinance or the agendas, if it is prioritized in the best interest of the city, I think there should not be any issue among different council members. If it is in the best interest of the city and its citizens, I think they should all work together and make it work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to do closing statements, but before that, I'd like to give a thank you to everyone being here, first of all, being part of the voting process, which is very important. And thanks to ICTN, this will be on TV on Friday night and on YouTube if you want to rewatch it, and to the City of Irving for hosting us here tonight. The League of Women Voters has done a great job with candidates. If I could all ask you to, in your closing statements, tell the voters how to get a hold of you or website or any other way that you want to be connected. We did a lot of questions tonight, but there's still a lot of questions that I'm sure you're saying, David, why didn't you ask that question? That always happens, but make sure you get the voters your information where to reach out. Early voting is April 24th to May 3rd, and Election Day is May 6th. For more information, you can go to vote411.org or dallascountyvotes.org for your polling locations. With that, I believe, Mr. Varble, you are up for closing statements.
I want to again thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. I wish to close by stating that I'm the only candidate in this race who has senior management experience working for large corporations. I'm the only person in this race that has been previously elected to public office. I was appointed by a governor to serve on a state board and elected in a nonpartisan race to serve in a district-wide office previously. I currently serve as the University Park Estates Homeowners Association president and work for a Fortune 500 company as the director of labor relations and serve as a chief negotiator. What all this means to you, the voters, is me asking you to hire me and that experience matters. It also means that I know what it takes not only to negotiate, but to be successful. My name is Matt Varble. I'm running for city council because you deserve a strong, experienced advocate. I humbly ask for your vote. This is an important race, and while the city in many respects is on the right path, we have much more to accomplish, and I ask to be your voice on the council. My literature at the back of the room has all of my contact information, including my website, and my website is just my name. It's mattvarble.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cronowitz.
Thank you again, League of Women Voters, for putting on this forum, and thank you all for attending. As I've said, my service to the community on boards and here running for city council is to be an advocate for Irving families. That's formed my opinion of what should be done for the city. It's why I have the issues that I'm running on, and it's what I try to do, what I intend to do as a member of the city council if I were to be elected. If elected to the city council, I will address the increasing aggressive panhandling. This is a danger to public safety that must be handled speedily and effectively. I will promote the relocation of Fire Station 8 and the addition of Medicaid as an ambulance to better serve District 5. I will continue to engage high-performing charter schools to locate to Irving to meet the demands for families for alternative learning options for their kids. I will improve the quality of life for all Irving families by looking at opportunities at the Texas Stadium and Exxon locations to create family-centered destinations, recreational venues, and green space. I will consider creative options to address our traffic congestion by exploring such different ideas such as connecting Tom Braniff Road to Luna and Royal by opening a corridor that will actually allow further development on the east side of the city and allow for further development at Texas Stadium. You can reach me at 469-323-6005, and my website is mark4irving.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kohler.
So let's be honest. Community involvement, local elections, it's really, not many people do it. We've got community leaders. We have folks who are interested in serving and representing the people. we represent a very small subculture within the 254,000 Irving residents. But the one thing that we all share in common, whether you're sitting here or down there, that we all believe in taking action, right? We're not being keyboard warriors. So, let's keep all the bickering, the, personal online attacks, whether it's real or staged, let's not let that take the focus away of what's really important. So voters, focus on the candidate who you're going to trust, that's going to be professional, remain professional, calm and diplomatic, and be able to work with their colleagues to get things done for you, keeping Irving safe, clean, and prosperous. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stanford. Oh, Jesse, did you have a website or anything for them to go to?
I'm a Facebook kind of guy, but yes, my promotional marketing materials are right over there if you want personal contact information. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stanford.
I'd like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters and everyone that's watching here in person and online for having us all up here to talk. You can reach me at anthony@anthonystanford.com, or you can go to my website, anthonystanford.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Stroop.
Thank you to the wonderful League of Women Voters and ICTN, which is a fabulous Irving community television network. And if I get on council, we need an app so we can just push it on our phone and see this broadcast. I love Irving. I've been here for 29 years. Again, I'm a well-rounded candidate with the chamber, the city, the school system. I know it's a throwback statement, but I would like to see us back to where we were in the 90s. We had some really good things going on, and we are in prime condition to move forward and let this be the best destination in the Metroplex once again, where we can capitalize on all the land we have, businesses, revitalization once we get our infrastructure in place in South Irving. My website is heather4irving.com, and my number and literature are over to the left of us. Thank you.
And can we get a round of applause for our Place 5 candidates? Place 3, Mr. Burton Zetti.
I want to thank the League of Women Voters and ICTN for allowing us to present ourselves today. I want to pledge that I'm looking for ways to look into the budget to fund twice-a-week trash pickup, fix sidewalks and roads, build a few pools here in the city. And I think we need to take a look at places to cut. And there are places. I don't think we're going to necessarily grow our way out of this. We have to readjust where we're spending our money. And one of the things is to stop using bonds the way we are. Because at any rate, that's the way I look at things. And I have a website, if y'all want to go to it. It's called paulburtonzetti.com. And I have some brochures over there. Y'all can pick some up. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kabir.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and ICTN for giving this opportunity to present ourselves here. And my name is Abdul. I'm running for City Council Place 3 in District 3. And my website is Abdul for Irving. And if you have any feedback or any comments, please visit our website. And my number is 630-561-5462. If you want to reach out directly to me, I am always available. Please go out and vote for Abdul And the voting date is on May 6th. The early vote starts 24th April to May 2nd. And thank you for your support.
Thank you. Mr. Zeski.
My email is markzeski@yahoo.com. I'd like to tell you the great things that have happened in Irving the last 2 years while I've been on city council. And these are kind of in the order I've put them, and I think it's a great way to end the meeting. First thing is we saved our AAA bond rating. It was about to go away, kind of. Standard & Poor's and Moody, we have AAA. There's only about 10 cities in Texas that have both those. That ultimately saves us millions of dollars. And speaking of $1 million, we refinanced a lot of our bonds at the lowest possible interest rate. We hit it almost perfect. We saved over $125 million refinancing the bonds. Another thing I'd like to say is we opened up the Irving Arts Museum, which has already won national awards. It's a one-of-a-kind thing that we have in this city that no place else in North Texas have. We opened up Heritage Park. We spent $4 million redoing Bear Creek, both the rec center, we opened up a Martin Luther King Park there. We have the only mental wellness facility of its kind for our first responders. It's another great thing that only happens in this city, and people around the country are looking at it, and you can expect more great things like that from me if you vote for me. Thanks.
Great. Thank you all. Can we get a round of applause for our place 3 candidates? So once again, thank you for being here tonight. April 24th to May 3rd is early voting. May 6th is election day. And with that, have a good night.